welcome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. It's so great to be here. I'm very excited.
So this is Geo Swaby. Geo Swaby is an interdisciplinary visual artist born in Nassau, Bahamas in 1991. She graduated with an Associate of Arts degree in Fine Art from the College of the Bahamas and with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Film, Video, and Integrated Media from Emily Carr University of Art and Design. Swaby's practice encompasses installation, textile, collage, performance, and video. So welcome, Geo.
Thank you. Thank you.
My first question to you is just please tell us about your artwork and your practice. Maybe you could go into, some of the context of your work and why you've chosen the subject matter.
At the moment, primarily my work is mostly textile based. I work with a lot of fabric and thread, and I use the sewing machine to create portraiture. My subject matter mostly entails looking into themes of Blackness and womanhood. So that could kind of cover anything from hair, which is a pretty important topic for Black women everywhere. I just want to kind of use my work as a positive force. We see so many negative images of Black bodies and so many destructive and violent images of violence being perpetrated upon us. It's very common, and I just want to kind of bring show the other side of that. A lot of times when people are talking about the injustices that a certain group of people face, we tend to kind of focus on the very negative aspects and how that's affected us so negatively. But I want to use my work to celebrate Black bodies and especially Black women.
Maybe explain why there's such sort of intense feelings about hair.
Mm-hmm. So this can go back to times before chattel slavery and before we were all separated and split up all over the world. Hair was important to us and our ancestors in several countries across Africa, and it still remains that way today. I feel like it can be a thread that kind of traces back to help us reconnect with our roots in that way. I know I'm using a lot of words that are connected to hair. It's not intentional, but it's working out very well. So for a lot of Black people, I'm from the Bahamas, the Caribbean. I can't trace my history back very far just because there are not a lot of records. I don't know I know there are several islands in the Bahamas, so I know which island my family came from. Hair feels to me like the connection that can't be broken. It grows out of your scalp, and I see a very common theme of hair across all Black women and Black people in general, actually Black men as well, for styling, the way we care for it, and the different various styles that we do. It all seems very connected. Lots of Black women at the time ended up having to relax their hair and make it straight in order to work. And that theme has continued on into current day. It was initially forced upon us, and now it's being continued on within the Black community by Black men and women. And it's very heavily enforced in some places, like in the Bahamas. You can't work in certain places if your hair looks like mine, if it's just natural, even though this is how my hair just is. So that's why I think it's so important. It's like reclaiming a part of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Like there's been systematic erasure of what it means to be a Black person, and that's one of the ways that it has happened.
Now a lot of Black women go through various forms of hair journeys, whether it be returning to natural hair, which means no relaxer involved, it's just the natural curl pattern, or if they choose to style their hair in another way, like wigs and weaves are very common in the community, and that even can be traced back very, very, very far down the line. So thank
Well, I
you.
definitely feel like your work celebrates, different characters, and you do that also using like different textiles kind of to do that. Like it seems to me anyways, but that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, how is working with textiles embroidery influencing your work? Is it like drawing and painting? And then why did you choose that medium?
It's very much like drawing and painting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a little bit less control over exactly what the pattern looks like, but I control where the pattern goes and what shape it is and how I want it to be placed. So for me, it's very much like painting in that aspect. And I think it's kind of nice actually to work with something that already exists in the world, and then I kind of form and shape it into what I would like it to be. And then the thread to me is almost exactly like drawing. I have just as much control over it. Actually, a lot of people confuse the thread on my work for ink or some other kind of pencil until they come up a bit closer, and then they're like, "Oh, it's actually thread here."
Mm-hmm.
So to me, those things overlap a lot. My mother's a seamstress. I've been around a house full of fabric and thread my entire life. Like since I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid, we would make like clothes for my Barbie on the sewing machine, or like do different like Halloween costumes or other things like that. So I've always kind of like had a love for it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I met a quilter as well, Jan Elliott, back in, I think this was 2011 or 2012. And she introduced me to different styles of quilting and different techniques. And that's when it really clicked together for me that this is medium I want to explore, because I
Mm-hmm.
explored lots of different ways of working in my practice. And then this one ended up kind of sticking in such a rich area to discover that I've just continued working throughout with fabric.
When you choose fabrics, do you, is there a reason behind some of the fabrics that you're choosing, or are you just kind of, uh, excited by the colors, the patterning, and then you just sort of play with it? Or is there something more behind that?
Um, so the way I shop for fabrics initially is down to aesthetics. I kind of know what I want things to look like. I have a very particular style of working and the way that my pieces look in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I shop initially. I go to the fabric store, spend a small fortune, but always toward the last middle part and the end of my project. I always go back and I'm like looking for very specific patterns or textures. This is where it gets hard because this is the limitation of textile, but also the fun. Because it's really, really hard when you're looking for something in particular. That's why you kind of have to give yourself over to it and say, when I find something I love, then that's what I'll get. But
Mm-hmm.
when I'm looking for a particular color or something like that, then I go into a deep dive and I'm really like piecing through everything.
It's kind of
Um,
like you're mixing your paints and trying to find the color, but you just do it in the fabric store.
yeah, exactly. They
Yeah.
don't like they love me, but they also don't like me there because I'm there for so long. Sometimes they're like, ah.
Just buy some stuff.
I know.
Yeah, it's cool. Um, so tell me about your performance work.
I really enjoyed working in performance. I kind of got into it during my studies at Emily Carr. I studied in a performance course with my professor at Emily Carr, Randy Cutler, and
Mhm.
she just kind of opened up a whole new world. That felt less like a class than more like a life experience. She kind of opened up a whole new world for me.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, no, it was like, I can't tell you how transformative taking that course was for me. I'm so
Mhm.
glad I did it because it's definitely out of my comfort zone. But even so, for that, I actually create the wearable. So I created that suit in the performance video or the photographs that I'm wearing. So initially it was still a textile project.
Mhm.
But I just really enjoyed the very physical nature of performance. It's like getting that very quick initial reaction to what you're doing.
Mhm.
You get to see what people how people kind of feel by the look on their face, or maybe even commentary sometimes. That's something that you don't usually achieve with working in other areas of visual art. You can be at an opening or whatever else, but people are not, they know they're going to look at art. So the way that they move and the way that they respond is a lot more different than when they are surprised by it. It was for me about feeling so othered in living in Vancouver, because coming coming from the Bahamas, that's like a mostly Black. I never had to feel like I was different. There were lots of people that looked like me, and I would never go somewhere and it would be like, the only person that looks like this is here. But in Vancouver, that happens to me all the time. I'm the only Black person in the room. Almost every room actually, unless I plan it.
Yeah. And
um,
how does that wear on you, or how do you wear that?
it's tough. I guess that's what the piece is about. Just what it's like to kind of live in that body every day is almost, it's like becomes a theatrical thing to people. Sometimes people kind of reduce you to this spectacle of just hair and skin, and like, oh, a Black person, like it's a novelty to them. So that's how it can be sometimes. You kind of learn to get over it, and then you notice it less. But if you start to pay attention to again, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
It can be hard, because it was a very hard transition for me. It was not like living in a country that has more, going from like 90% Black to maybe like 40%. It was like 90 to 1%. I went with these very like glitter or iridescent type fabrics and things like that, because I wanted to kind of play on stereotypes we have of what does an alien look like to people when we think about it in pop culture and in media. A lot of times people do use that. They either do the green alien or they are like sparkly or something else. So
Right.
obviously the sparkly is more appealing to me. So I went I went with that kind of theme to really bring attention to the whole alien aspect of what it feels like being othered here.
Well, did anyone inspire you in that piece, or?
Yeah, I looked at the works of Nick Cave for that a lot. The textile artist, he kind of creates all of these really beautiful sculptures of they look like human bodies in wearing the things that he's created.
So let's break down one of your pieces. Which one would you like to talk about?
Being scared of hair comb is a phrase in the Bahamas for people who don't like to get their hair done in any way it's usually younger girls. I was scared of hair comb. It's very funny.
Why would you be scared of hair comb?
Because it's a big, like when I was a kid, it's like, it's a big production, like, and but at that time, if you have like natural hair back in the 90s, people don't like, we have so much more information now about how to care for it, how to properly detangle and do all these other things. At that time, information was very limited. And my family was like all hair relaxed. They had no idea how to do it without like making it be this awful experience and take so long. So it would be stuff like,
Is it painful?
yes, it can be. It can be. My mom would try, like if I would be like, oh, that hurts, she would try to do something else, but only so far you can go if you have no idea that you're like, for natural Black hair, you're not supposed to use a tiny comb to detangle, and you're not really supposed to detangle it dry. But that's what she was trying to do because she just didn't she just didn't have the information. So there's very few ways that you can make that go well. So this is a series of 11 pieces. They are about 20 by 28 oval pieces with the lace around the sides of them. And it's just a celebration of the creativity of Black hairstyles. All the different ways we found to style and fix our hair. And I just, the level of technique that's required to do it as well. It's not something you can just copy or pick up off the street. Like, it's very, very hard, like, to do certain styles of braiding or certain styles of cornrows. Like, it's to me, I think it's a real art. It's a strong skill that's requires a lot of work and development.
Well, you get that from the work. It's really joyous, really beautiful. It's I get that totally. It feels like a celebration. Well, okay. So tell me about the show that you're going to be having in the Bahamas, and what's it called, and when will it be?
I'm very excited about it. It's actually still kind of like the Bahamas is going through a soft opening because of COVID-19. So we're still in the TBD phase. We're hoping that it opens the very last week of July. The show is titled In Her Image. So it's again a celebration of Blackness and womanhood. It's in Nassau, Bahamas, at the Central Bank of the Bahamas Art Gallery.
So what advice do you have for your younger self that that has worked, that you've learned over time, but you wish you could go back and tell your younger self?
Just keep working. Like, don't lose confidence because things are not happening for you as fast maybe as other people. Just continue working on your craft. Just keep developing your techniques. Like, I would say, this sounds weird, but I would say just try to focus more on yourself. I think at that time I was just like, oh, what is this person doing? Like, what's that person doing? Like, I felt like I haven't developed my personal style yet. I was just worried about being, I guess, left behind, or that people were advancing a lot faster than me. In reality, that wasn't even the case. It was just a looking back, I think it was just anxiety kind of like making its way into my mind. But I would just say, just stay focused on the practice. Just keep working. And that's where you find the most joy.
So I was going to ask you to give us an art prompt that we can somehow get into your way of thinking and practice art, like kind of like you do.
I would say the one thing I've been doing a lot recently is working with my scraps. I am trying to, it feels like a ghost of something that I've already made. Like, it feels like this has already been introduced to some energy that I have already put into it. But I have like a literal giant bag of scraps because I am so attached to everything. I will not throw away any of the scraps I cut out. And with fabric, you have a ton. So I've been actually working on a few pieces where I'm using those scraps to create works. And I would say it's such a fun way to practice. So I might say, try making a work where from whatever you make, you use the scraps to make something new.
I tend to work in collage and painting. So there's things that I've made that I don't like, that I discard. But in a way, for me, when I listen to that, I think, oh, maybe I'll like take some of that work back and then try to work into it or cut it up, or, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think that you can interpret that differently based on your working.
That's a good prompt. I like it. So what else do we need to know about you? Is there anything else that's going on that we should know right now? Or
I'm very excited to announce that I was awarded a BC Arts Council grant. So I'm currently working on that project.
Geo, where can we find you online if we want to learn more about you? And maybe you can give me your website, your Instagram, or any other places that we should look.
So Instagram, my name on there is my name. So it's at Geo Swaby. And then my website is also my name, geoswaby.com. And with those two things, kind of Instagram is more like, this is what I'm currently working on. And my website is more like an archive of completed works. So but I think those show two different sides of my process and also my personality. So those would be two really good resources to find.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, thank you.